Good afternoon. Good morning. All right, still good morning. What's a way to get everybody's attention, right? All right. What a wonderful group. It's good to see everyone. My name is Muriel Nuttall. I'm the Executive Director of the Fayette Chamber of Commerce, and on behalf of the Fayette County Economic Development Coalition, and that is Fayette Economic Development Council, the Redevelopment Authority of the County of Fayette, Fayette Chamber of Commerce, and the Economic Development Office of Fayette County. There's a lot of Fayette counties in there. We want to thank you all for being here with us today. We're pleased that you all joined us for this really important roundtable conversation on housing. As we start today, I do want to take just a minute and thank Community Bank. I think Ben's in the room today. Some Community Bank folks, if we can give them a round of applause. They immediately stepped up to sponsor our lunches for today, and so we're very thankful for that. In addition, I would like to take just a minute to recognize some folks that we have in the room with us today, joining us for the discussion, trying not to catch them mid-bite. First, Senator Pat Stefano. We have commissioners with us today, Commissioner Scott Dunn, Commissioner Vince Vasidis. Commissioner Kaufman was unable to be with us today, but he sends his wishes and knows that we will catch him up on the conversation. Additionally, Representative Krupa was not able to be here with us today, but she has sent representation so that she can stay in the conversation as well. So thank you for coming. All right. So today we've brought together a group of diverse leaders, experts, and community stakeholders because we recognize that housing is not just a community need, it is an economic driver. Whether we're talking about workforce attraction, neighborhood revitalization, or quality of life, housing is at the center of it all. Today's conversation is about listening, learning, and beginning a shared conversation about how we can all move forward together with solutions that meet the real needs of Fayette County residents and employers. We are so grateful that you're here to be a part of this process. Couple of little housekeeping things. If you do need to get up and use the restroom, feel free to do that. It is just out in the hall. They're real close. When you came in today, I think if you were suspecting that you might have a question, you might have picked up one of these little white cards. If you do have questions, feel free to write on that card and just kind of hold it up. The team will be around. We will collect those. We will not be opening the floor to questions necessarily, but we will feed those cards to our moderator, Mark Rafel, to share with our panelists. So keep those cards handy, write your notes, stick them up, we'll come up and pick them up. Enjoy your lunches as well. If you didn't get a lunch, there are still some out there. And to help kick off today's conversation, I would like to introduce to you Tim Flecker, Executive Director of Fayette Economic Development Council. Tim? I forgot. We also have Thursa Krause here from Representative Brian Warner's office. Hey, Thurs, thanks for being here.
So excited to meet many new people here today. I'm going to quickly go into what Fay Penn's role is. Fay Penn has historically had housing in our mission statement, though historically we don't necessarily spend a lot of time and energy on housing. Most of you probably know we've built industrial parks, we have a rather robust loan fund, and then we will spread across the gamut of economic development. But about 3 years ago, a decision was made to start studying this problem of why are there no new large-scale developments. So we brought in Patrick Bowen, sitting here who's the president of Bowen National Research. We commissioned a study, which really started and he came out 2 years ago, probably about today, around the same time. Did a wonderful presentation. Many of you were in that room. The county collectively, one of the suggestions was we would form a housing task force, which we did. Jim Stark was chosen as the chair. and I'll run through that list of who was on that housing task force. But we've been studying this problem now for 2 years, and my conclusion is there's no simple answers. I'm a believer in the market, the free market. The question I'm always asking is, why is the free market not solving this problem? If there's a demand, why are homes being built? That's part of this discussion today, and today is a discussion. So Mr. Bowen's going to come up and give us a quick overview of what we reviewed last year. He took the time and updated some of his stats. I think they're intriguing, and it definitely should inform the group as to some of the challenges, but also some of the opportunities. So without further ado, Mr. Bowen.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Tim. Good morning, class. You ready for a pop quiz? It's really weird. I knew I was coming here, so maybe that's why. This is absolute truth. Last night I dreamt I was in college. And for some reason, though, I was never in theater, but my dream last night was I was about to go on stage. So maybe it's because I'm here in front of you. But I didn't know what the play was, and I hadn't studied my lines. They're like, okay, Patrick, go. Fortunately for you, I do have my lines studied, and I'm going to go over some of the great information, I hope. This is a pretty short presentation. As Tim mentioned, we did a housing needs assessment, really the third and fourth quarter of 2023. And so some things have changed in the United States, some things have changed here in Fayette County. And so I'm going to show you some data from that original study, not very much. And even though we weren't commissioned to do any kind of update report or study for this event today, I did gather some information that I think would be very helpful to you all. All right, so this was the content of the study back in 2023. We looked at a lot of demographics, economics. Obviously, we looked at the housing supply, whether it was the rental or the for sale. We had housing gap estimates, meaning how many units are needed in the market. We got a lot of good community input. I'll share some of that with you here. We got a lot of good contacts. So a lot of people talked to us. It wasn't just Bowen in a vacuum. Our office is in Columbus, Ohio, although I grew up right here in Washington County nearby. We got a lot of good information from the folks here. Some of you probably participated in that. And then we had some recommendations, and it sounds like you've started on that process. What I'm going to show you here today, too, is just some new demographics. Fortunately for you all and for me, we have the latest 2025 estimates for certain household and population numbers that just came out about a month ago. So this is about as fresh as you get. But I also have 2030 projections for a few categories. So you'll see how the county is expected to change. I've got some critical commuter inflow number, which I know resonated with a lot of the folks here. So I'll show you who's commuting in, because I think that's a key part of the story. And then I do have some updated for sale housing data. All right, demographically, again, the study had a lot of information, and so I updated just a few key points, and I really focused in on just a few things tied to households. This is median household income growth. 2025, it's at $56,000, projected to get up to about $61,000 in the year 2030. And with household income growth, people will have more income to apply for two various things, and that includes spending more money on housing. So this is household income by tenure, meaning renters versus owners. So the renters are in that royal blue, homeowners are in the darker blue. So where's all your growth expected? And it's probably going to surprise most of you folks. It's anything at $75,000 and higher, but most of that, particularly for the homeowners, again in those darker blue bars, the growth is going to be in those households that make about $100,000 or more a year. And then to some degree, even the renters, you're going to see growth of those that make $100,000 or more. Now, one of the things I caution folks, I did this in the study in 2023 when I presented that, and I just want to make sure folks, when you see the decline in lower income households, I truly hope that people don't draw a conclusion and say we don't need more affordable, attainable housing. You do, and there's the folks struggling with their housing costs, the quality of housing, things like that. That are lower income households. I'll show you a little bit about what's happening with the whole spectrum of rentals and for sale. But again, I just want to caution folks when you see those declines that you don't draw the conclusion that you don't need workforce attainable housing for folks, and even for lower income seniors. All right, so this is households by age, and it's just on the left-hand side, the pie chart. Most of your households, a majority of them, about 56, 57%, are ages 55 and older. So you have a lot of older folks here, and that's obviously going to drive some of your trends as you move forward. On the right-hand side, the bar graph showing you where are you going to grow. It's in that 35 to 44 age group. Again, these are households, not population. And then 75 and older, significant amount of growth. And being a Western Pennsylvania native, I know, and you should all be aware, Western Pennsylvania has a lot of older folks. And so this is no surprise, nothing unique here in Fayette County. But nonetheless, as this changes, it's going to affect what type of housing you all will need to at least consider, especially for the seniors that are trying to age in place. At some point, they financially or physically, they just can't maintain their homes. They're going to need a place to downsize to, and you really don't have that housing available to them. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. So we had this data in the 2023 study. We had 2020 commuter inflow. So we'll just focus on that first. That's a map showing Fayette County, how many people commuted every day into work, over 14,000 people. And the latest data that I could get, I just pulled this about a week ago. It's 2022, how many people are commuting in. It has increased up to over 15,000, almost 200 people commuting in. Now, the number of people that work here and live in the county is pretty static at about 21,500 or 600 people. But this is a key part of the study. A lot of folks that do what I do ignore this piece, and I think it's a major oversight for a lot of communities. And when you've got a lot of folks commuting in, they earn their wages here, maybe they buy lunch, maybe they get gas or whatever, but most of those earnings are taken out of your county and spent back home. Now, there's a lot of reasons why people don't live in the same community they work, right? It could be the schools, taxes, whatever it is. But I assure you, housing absolutely plays a role in that decision-making process. I'll show you here in a second, you don't have very much rental and for-sale housing available. So for a lot of these commuters, if they wanted to live here, they can't. Right? Either they can't find something they can afford or it just doesn't meet their family needs. Whatever their circumstances are, they don't have a lot of choices. So it does deter the potential growth this county can have. Now, we didn't survey or ask a lot of residents or at least commuters that come in here their opinions on whether they would move. I might have something on that. But I would just tell you, typically in markets, we've probably surveyed 10,000 people in the last 2 years in markets all over the country. And anywhere from 20, 30, sometimes 40% of those commuters, when we ask them, would you live in the county for which you work if housing was available and affordable to you, the answer is yes. So even on the worst case scenarios, when it's down in 20%, let's just say that's what Fayette County's number was. That's a lot of people that would live here if you had housing. So point being, housing is holding this county back from truly reaching its potential for growth and opportunity. So key part, and we do have data. In fact, I do have it in the next slide. So out of those 15,000 people that commute in, and it's making up about 41% of the people that are employed here in the county, 4,800, almost 4,900 of those people commute over 50 miles a day each way. So they're making a long commute here. So for those that are in the working class, modest incomes, that are working a lot of your service industry sector jobs, that's probably a tough pill to swallow financially for their transportation cost. And so that in itself increases the likelihood that those workers may give up on that commute and try to find something closer. That poses a risk for your employers because they're more likely to have turnover among employees. That's not a good thing for a business. So again, a lot of people commuting a long distance, and over half of those commuters are between the ages of 30 and 54, and almost half earn over $40,000 annually. The map itself, that was not in the study. It's a little bit different than what we had in the study. We did show in the study itself what counties are the bigger contributors to people that commute in, but I wanted to show here more granular data, and it's just the purple dots. The bigger the dots, the darker it is. Shows you where people are coming from. So you do have a lot of people coming down from Allegheny County, Washington, and even from the Morgantown area coming up here. So a lot of people locally that are commuting in, but as I said before, you have a notable amount commuting over 50 miles a day. All right, this is one of the few slides that I have from 2023 from the original study. And this is our survey of multifamily apartments. So this is where our staff actually called property managers, leasing agents, talked to them, physically visited the properties. 39 properties were inventoried, 2,400 units, over 2,400. Look at the occupancy rate. Overall at 99.6. I think I said it then, and I don't think anybody's beat you since. That's probably the highest we have seen in the last 100 markets we've studied in different sizes, different growth areas, declining areas, rural, urban, whatever it is. That might be the highest occupancy rate we've ever inventoried. Now that's good for investors and that's good for developers, but that's not good for the community. You want vacancies, some, right? For a healthy market, you want your occupancy rate to be about 94 to 96%. Now, I know there's developers that are going to be on this panel with me in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about different housing aspects, but they would obviously, I would think, would like to see higher occupancies. But for the community, you want vacancies because you want people to be able, even your own residents that are here now, right? The millennial that's living in your basement, you want them out, right? People that laugh probably have that millennial. And so you want them out. Well, where are they going to go? Even if they have a good job, you don't have very much available for them. But think about people that are getting married. Maybe two people that know each other just want to become roommates. People that want to relocate to this area, all those commuters that I just showed you. Where are they going to live? You don't have much to choose from. In your case, one of the things that is a little bit different here than most markets, usually when we break this out by market rate versus tax credit, and tax credit's an affordable housing program for people of modest to low incomes, and then there's government subsidized housing for the lowest income households. Usually we've got some vacancies in the market rate. The affordable stuff, again, tax credit, government subsidized, there's usually, it's almost full, big wait list. Where you're different is it's even on your market rate side, you just don't have very much available. So this is certainly a challenge, but at the same time, this is an incredible opportunity for developers to come to a market that has incredibly high occupancy rates. This is updated information. This is homes that were sold. So the blue bars on the graph show you the number of homes that were sold annually in the county. And we updated up through 2025, and then this was actually just a week ago. When I pulled this, so July 31st for 2025, we projected out the 2025 numbers for the rest of the year. And you could see a shift in the volume of homes that were sold between 2022 and 2023. What happened at that time, right? Interest rates kicked in. And so we started to see, not just here, but all over the country, the activity of home sales started to slow down. And another thing that we saw all over the country, and it's happened here as well, is then home prices started to level off as interest rates climbed. And so your home prices were at 150 in 2022 and then leveled off, really didn't change much, and now here in 2025 they're starting to peak back up again. So you are seeing some appreciation or at least increases in home prices. There's some markets where it is astonishing of how much home prices continue to climb despite interest rates being where they are. All right, so what's available for you all? So in the very first black box there, when we pulled this information in 2023, you had 325 homes available. That as of last week, it was down to 253. So down 72 homes, 22%. A notable decline. I'm going to show you where those declines occurred. And then the other thing that we look at is what we would do is an availability rate, where I take those available homes, divide it by all owner-occupied housing. So we come up with it's like a vacancy rate for apartments. We do an availability rate for sale housing. You're at a 0.7%. Again, very good news for developers and investors for this area. Not good for the health of the community. You want that to be about 2 to 3% vacant. So you're well below what you need to have in terms of available product. This is probably one of the surprising things to me, and this is, again, comparing what was available by price point in 2023, June of 2023, and July of 2025. So the light blue is 23 numbers, and the dark blue is 25. And you could see every price point, with the exception of that $400,000 and higher, everything is shrinking. So it's not one segment, it's pretty much the whole market is seeing a decreased available inventory of available for sale product. And if you don't add more to your housing stock, this is going to keep dwindling and dwindling. And in a market where I just showed you, you don't have very much available, 0.7%, that's not a good trend for the county. And I did look, and I don't have it in a slide, but I did look at this older, the homes that were priced under $200,000. including the stuff we just pulled last week, a lot of that stuff is really old. So there is a reason that it is affordable, right? Not universally true, but generally true. Anything under $200,000 is really old. It's got small square footage, and there's likely, because we don't look at every home that's available, there's likely some quality issues, whether it's weatherization with the home, maybe it's roof, shingles, insulation, or something like that, or other repairs that are needed. So yes, could people afford a home here in the county of modest incomes? Yeah, they could, but the challenge probably exists for many of these. They don't have the money to put back into the homes to get them up what I would think we'd all agree of being modern day living standards. The other thing I cited on here is anything that was really built after 2000 is priced well over $375,000. So again, for developers, they're looking, is this a market that can support, it has supported? There are homes available that have been selling and are still available to purchase, well over $375,000. Just a couple slides left here. So these are the housing gaps estimates from 2023. Renters are the top table, the homeowners, for sale housing on the bottom half. The numbers may feel big to some of you folks, but keep in mind, and I could talk at length about how we come about these numbers, but the drivers behind this is people living in lower quality housing, people spending excessive amounts towards housing that they can't sustain, projected growth in some segments, as you saw in the terms of the households by income and age groups. Those commuters that I showed you coming in, some of them absolutely will move here if you have the housing. And we looked at your pipeline, what's being built at the time when we did the study. So it all gets factored in to come up with these numbers. You had a housing gap of over 1,800 rental units and a for sale gap of over 2,600 units. I marked in the red where the biggest gaps were for each one of those two segments. But really, in the end, with the exception of the really low priced homes under $167,000, you have a gap among everything else. Basically saying you have a need across the entire spectrum of rentals and for sale housing. So these are good numbers for developers to see. Bad numbers for the community, but certainly goals and targets, whether it's Fayette, Penn, or other groups that are involved with trying to turn things around in terms of housing market conditions, you certainly have an incredible opportunity here. I won't read through all of these. Again, this is from the original study. We collected information from stakeholders, employers, and residents. And generally, the theme that came back was, people wanted some stuff that was affordable, whether it was rental or for sale. A lot of people wanted move-in ready homes, things like that. The one that I thought I would want to point out, I did it in 2023, but I want to stress it again today. It's the same data, but not all of you probably read the study when it was originally published, nor did you get to see a presentation. And I think it's the employer piece that really needs to be discussed for just a second. So we asked employers a lot of questions. I put 4 bullet points here on what were the key takeaways from what we learned from the employers. And the number one issue their employees was facing was lack of available housing. So no surprise, right? Our data showed you don't have much rental or for sale housing. So the employers were saying that their employees were going through that. When we asked employers specifically about housing, is housing adversely impacting your company? 25% said yes. When we do that survey around the country, again, keep in mind this was 2 years ago. When we do this survey around the country, we've surveyed probably about 2,000 employers in the last couple of years. About 40% of employers are saying, yes, housing's hurting me in many ways. And I could have a healthier, better company if we could solve our local housing issues. So you're pretty much in line with what other parts of the country have been telling us. When we asked them specifically, what is it about housing that's impacting you? The top 2 answers were attracting workers, which has been that way for years when we asked this question. But the one that keeps climbing and climbing is retaining the workforce. That wasn't really on the radar a few years ago, but as time has passed, that's now becoming a major challenge for employers, right? So they both are lining up to indicate that employers are adversely being impacted by housing. The other thing to mention is about half of those employers indicated to us they would hire more people if local housing issues could be resolved. Again, pretty much in line with what we're seeing around the country. And that's significant too, right? You want a growing economy, you want a healthy economy, but housing is holding you back. Don't take my word for it. Take the words of your employers telling us that's a challenge. And then just the sources that you can go to. The Fayette Penn website has the 2023 study, so if you wanted to go see that document, you could. And then I just put four other websites that are really good. So the good news here is, while Fayette County faces a housing challenge in many ways, but also many great opportunities. This is a national crisis, right? I am incredibly busy going all over the United States, doing a lot of these studies, doing a lot of these presentations. And that is because the nation's going through a housing problem in many ways, right? Affordability, availability, quality, all of these things. You are not unique. And that's good news, because there's a lot of communities out there that are trying to work through this. Some try and fail at certain things that they thought were clever and would work, and others have tried things and have been quite successful. So there are a lot of examples out there. So these websites that I put up here, they do an exceptional job of not knowing what your community wants to do, and there's a lot of pathways through this, but they line up many possibilities for you at least to explore. To say if it's regulatory things, if it's something to do with land, infrastructure, incentives, whatever. There's a ton of things to do. These websites give you examples of what those are, how to set them up. It shows you some communities that have tried this. So the roadmap is out there. It's just going to be up to this community to decide what is the path you all want to take. So with that said, I don't think I had anything else. Maybe nope, didn't even have contact. So that's all I have. Hopefully I kept within my time. We good? Okay.
Thank you so much. While we have a minute, I saw Mitch sneak in there from Senator Fetterman's office, and also Sean from Congressman Restithal's office, so thank you for coming. So I think there's a lot of great data. We want to make data-informed decisions, and I appreciate that you took the time to refresh and revalidate. I know that county commissioners, I throw pieces of data from this study out all the time. Probably every week I have a conversation. 14,000 people, 15,000 people drive into Fayette County to work and then go home to sleep somewhere else. That's a massive problem. And the other one, that 99%, 99.6% occupancy rate on the rental side. That's a huge problem. Earl Miller and I were talking to a site selection company yesterday, and in Fayette Penn, we try to retain and attract large-scale manufacturers. So we talk to them all the time, and one of the inevitable questions is always, where are my people? If I'm going to bring people here to work, if I'm going to bring a workforce of 100 to 200 people, where are they going to live? And I don't have a good answer for them. Morgantown, it's not what we want. That doesn't help our tax base. It doesn't help us grow. It doesn't help us grow our evening businesses, restaurants, and whatever. So it's a good indicator of a problem that we need to resolve. I just want to go back to the story, because I was telling the history of how we got to where we are today. The county-wide task force was formed after that. And again, Jim, I'm going to call some people out. I want you to raise your hand. I want to recognize the work. Jim Stark up there he's retired. He's the busiest retired man I know. So Jim's been spending a lot of time, and we've been meeting almost monthly now for the past 2 years. We also have Andrew from the Redevelopment Authority. We have Jessica and Angela from the Fayette County Housing Authority, Crystal Simmons from the Uniontown Redevelopment Authority, Michael Edwards from the Connellsville Redevelopment Authority. We have some realtors. We got Berkshire Hathaway and SWC on board. Rob Slater from Slater Engineering, Reed Smith from Bridgeway Capital. The commissioners all participate in this. A lot of county representation. So we got Commissioner Vacides, Commissioner Dunn. Commissioner Kaufman has joined now. Mary joins in from the office. Sarah Harvey from the Planning Commission office. And of course, Mark Raphael is one of the key members. And then Fayette Penn, we have a lot of our staff that contributes. In particular, Misty is kind of the unofficially designated administrative queen of the Housing Task Force. Out of that Housing Task Force, Fayette Penn took the lead and said, we're going to focus on market rate. And this is where I read this, when I heard this data 2 years ago, I'm like, why isn't the market solving this problem? So out of this discussion, I don't want to say we're not going to talk, because it is important, but my vision anyways for this discussion is market rate. Not the affordable and the government subsidized housing is a piece, and it definitely all intertwines, and we're not even talking so much about senior housing, though, as he identified in that discussion, there is a need. And they all interrelate. If you build one, then it might relieve pressure on some of these others. But the reason I'm excited about this is because of these developers that are in the room, because in the end, they're the ones that take the risk in having these experts at the table. And I'll relate it to, I came out of the medical industry. And if I told you that I had a symptom, I guarantee you, every one of you would give me a solution. If I said I have a headache, someone would tell me the answer, right? They're going to give me medical advice. I'm married to a doctor, and I'm going to tell you 99% of the time you're wrong. So you really should listen to the experts. That's what I'm telling you. So I'm excited to get these experts in the room today to give us some guidance and just continue this conversation. So now I'm going to introduce you, gentlemen. If you just want to come up, grab a seat, I'm going to raise your hand as I individually introduce you. Obviously, Patrick, come on up. Again, we've already introduced him, but he's one of our panelist members. We got Mike McGee. Thanks for coming, Mike. Mike's the CEO of the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors. It's the trade association that serves over 39,000 realtors in Pennsylvania. We have Nathan Lutz. Come on up, Nathan. When we talk investors, look at Nathan. This is pretty much what he manages. He's the vice president of Mountain Creek Property. They specialize in acquisition and management of underperforming multifamily properties. So rental market expertise is what we're bringing there. We got Jordan Alfred. Come on up. He's representing D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton is America's largest home builder. Anthony Trebizano, did I pronounce that right? Sorry, Anthony. Franjo Constructions, they're a regional leader in the general contracting for commercial. They do a lot of commercial building of real estate, commercial rental buildings. They're headquartered in Homestead. And then we got Nick Licciardi, come on up. Local builder, family real estate company. They have a significant amount of holdings, and they're always looking to solve these problems also. And then last but not least, our moderator today, Mark Raphael from the County Economic Development. I'll hand it over to you guys.
So if you guys want to turn your microphones on, there's buttons on the front. You can just turn those on to green. So, excuse me.
Mark's a DJ on the side, so he's got this.
Can everybody hear me okay? Great. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to ask these guys some questions, and then they're going to have a discussion as we go through the questions so that we can see what they feel is affecting Fayette County the most and why, and I know what everybody's going to say because I hear it every day. Why are they building in West Virginia? Why are they building in Westmoreland County? Why are they building everywhere except in Fayette County? And I can tell you, I asked that same question too, so that's why we got these guys here. Hopefully they can give us those answers and have that conversation that is hard to hear from our end because we believe that Fayette County, and we know Fayette County, is the best county in the state of Pennsylvania. I said that because two of my bosses are here, and I need two to keep my job. So let me start with Nate. Nate, can you share an example of the community or counties that are successfully attracting new home developers and what made that possible?
Let's see. Everybody here? Good. When I saw this question, I reside in the South Hills of Pittsburgh, and so the immediate example that came to mind was probably South Fayette as a good example. A lot of people in the Pittsburgh area point north towards Cranberry. South Fayette's a good one because growing up in that area, it was a super rural single A school with no real reputation, and then suddenly kind of grew into a double A school, and then from there it just took off. And in hindsight, looking back at what South Fayette had, what they had was pretty good highway access. They had lower taxes. The Washington County line is kind of where development kind of kicks off right when you cross that line, you can see a lot of single-family development that happens. And so South Fayette is the one that come to mind as far as somebody that was very rural and has moved into almost like a 5A school. And some of the reasons why that occurred was, once again, the highway access. And I don't know this, but somebody had to have their act together relative to utilities, because as fast as they put the single-family product down, somebody had to be coordinating the site utilities to handle all that pretty quickly. They also had a very small school district, so they didn't have any legacy issues. They had a very small single-A, ancient high school, ancient middle school, and ancient grade school. And that's all been basically leveled, and new schools have been built. So they didn't have any legacy issues to come along with it. They basically had pretty good topography, highway access. Someone had their act together on the single family to get the utilities in the ground. That was a good example or the best example that I could come up with.
I heard everything you said, and I thank you for that. Does anyone else have anything on the panel that they heard Nathan say that would be addition to that?
I think from a construction standpoint, when you look at the rents that are achievable in that market, you can get higher rents. And the problem that most municipalities or counties face is that the construction costs coupled with the land costs make it almost unachievable to pencil a deal for a developer. So what we see a lot of the times are land costs are way higher than they need to be or should be, which impacts the cost of the overall unit cost. So the average, I would say, in the city of Pittsburgh, for example, you're looking at rents between $260 and $280 a square foot right now. So if you're building a unit for $225, it works with the land cost being around, $15,000 to $30,000 a unit. So I think a lot of counties, what they're facing is the ability to build with the current construction costs and the current land acquisition costs to make it work. So that's where the commissioners here in Fayette County can help with having the ability to not donate the land, but have the land a part of the process. Because once you eclipse $15,000 a unit for land, it becomes really unachievable from a construction standpoint.
So with that being said, would something like a TIF help you with that cost?
As long as there isn't implications that require prevailing rate, once you dip into that fund, it increases the construction cost to a point, so then it becomes, again, unachievable.
Okay. Anyone else?
Let me just say, I'm not a developer, I'm a market analyst, but we do probably about 400 site-specific market feasibility studies around the country. And one of the things, and I'll echo what you just said, I mean, one of the first questions we get asked is, what kind of rent can I get, or what kind of home price can I get? And when we do these housing needs assessments, and we did ask that question here. In fact, we had a virtual focus group, Mark, if you remember, about a year ago, and we had, 8-10 developers on that call, and we learned a lot that day, as I suspect we're going to learn more here today. But we learned that development costs are probably one of the biggest drivers, either to bring somebody into a community or to keep them out of a community. So land is obviously one of the big drivers that contribute to that, land cost and availability of land. And so that's certainly an area, I think, if Fayette County wants to think forward. I know you all have a land bank. I don't know the specifics of the land bank. The land banking and how that's used and what sites you identify would probably be beneficial to the development community.
All right, I'm done with softball questions. I'm going right to Jordan with the question of the day. And Jordan, I already talked to you about this question, but I'm going to ask it again to you. What are the factors that you typically consider when selecting a location for new residential developments?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. So, first time I publicly spoke in quite a while. Brings me back to my public speaking class in college, but
Probably in a similar room.
yeah, absolutely was. But it's a good question. You know, there's quite a bit of factors that, you know, from an acquisitioner standpoint, like myself, I'm looking at when targeting new residential development. One of the big ones is resale market. So D.R. Horton, the reason we're #1 in the country is because we can serve markets that a lot of other people can't. And we could strategize and be strategic with certain products that we have to fit the current market's needs, right? So for me, when I'm looking at a new development, I'm looking at what's the resale market, what's the price range, what's the density. And so a lot of areas that we've been targeting have been the Butler County, Washington County, Allegheny County, and now Westmoreland, because the density's there and the market supports it.
Okay, and you guys are a very large developer. You're what, number one in the country?
Yeah, so we're actually not a developer, we're a builder, but
Okay.
we do have an affiliate company called Four Star that does development, and they're looking to potentially permeate into our area.
Into Fayette County?
Hopefully
No,
one
no.
day.
Yes or no, right now? We need, Rick, I don't know which one it is. So,
It could have been mine.
okay.
Okay, we're good now.
So let's go to Nick. Nick, you're a local developer.
That's correct.
So you just heard, a builder. So you just heard what he said makes his choices. What makes a local guy's choices?
A lot of the same things, honestly. Can you give me the question one more time, just
Yes.
just so I?
What factors do you typically consider when selecting a location for new residential development?
Yeah, on a local scale, obviously, availability of utilities, school district, those types of things. Here in Fayette County, demand is relatively the same in the major areas. So, yeah, those things.
You said school districts. What do you mean by school districts? Do you mean,
So at one point, we were talking about Morgantown, for instance. You know, I see a lot of objection getting people to come here from Morgantown because they are concerned that the school districts aren't as good, the athletic programs aren't as good. I don't know how we combat that, you know, in this room, but, yeah, that's definitely a factor as well. And just in the county, I mean, there are definitely preferred school districts, you know, between customers.
so Jordan, do you see that also in what you guys look at, the school district end?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, school district definitely plays a large role when vetting out properties, but it's not the end-all be-all either. You know, for example, we saw the numbers earlier. We have a lot of residents in Fayette County that, you know, in regards to the resale activity, they're primarily between the age of 50 and 74. So that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not an opportunity, right? We've got active adult communities that we have that are extremely pervasive throughout Western PA and rather this region, and they have been extremely popular. A lot of people love them. You give them an opportunity to not only have more of a patio home or, you know, master down one level living, but you also give them kind of a lifestyle, right? A community that maybe has bocce ball or, you know, a swimming pool. So really people go there and they stay.
So you're talking a true retirement home.
Essentially, pretty close to it, yeah.
So let me ask Mike a question, because the realtors are very actively involved in this too. Because if they build it, they need you guys to help sell it.
Right.
So what are the current housing market conditions and challenges that face potential buyers?
I mean, I would say, inventory, again, is a huge challenge. I think that the stats that were provided today is kind of a microcosm for the entire state, where, to be more specific, there's only 41,606 listings across the entire Commonwealth. And 10 years ago, there were 76,900. So just shows you what the supply imbalance has done, which has then dramatically increased the cost of housing. And if you think about what the traditional path to home ownership is, you get out of high school, you have your first job, you try to find a starter home, and then you gradually try to move up the household ladder. And that's just simply not happening the way that it used to. There aren't enough affordable homes for people to get that starter home, so to speak. So, yeah, the inventory, the fact that you're pretty much at all-time highs in terms of cost, and then interest rates going up do not help the situation.
Anybody want to comment on what Mike just said? All right, let me go back to Anthony. From a permitting and approval standpoint, being a builder, I know that that's one of the major tie-ups. How can the county or how can we help, or what are the holdups that you really see the most of?
Most often it's the DEP, when you have areas that are.
Which is a state agency, so everybody
State,
knows that.
correct.
The county is friendly. I'm just looking at some of the state folk here.
No, it's all seamless.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
From a permitting perspective, the local jurisdictions usually help out when there's a need for development. So I'm sure going through the permit process for a housing development would be fairly simple here. Now, the problem is with the DEP, the regulations and the time frame, you're looking at 8 months minimum to get through DEP on a site that's going to house or house a multifamily project. So when you're talking about that, it's very challenging, and a lot of developers, people on this board know that it's very, very difficult to get through DEP. So that would probably be the biggest one.
So Nick, I know you're ready to answer that question too, because you do both development here and in West Virginia.
So yes, that's actually incorrect. I do not do any
don't do
development
any
in West
development?
Virginia at all. But I'm bringing another perspective here in that I also worked as a permitting engineer for a long time. And exactly what he said, DEP is a big hurdle. It also requires a significant investment in engineering to submit to the DEP, at which point you may very well get so much resistance, they've made it so difficult that it becomes cost prohibitive. So now you've put up all that money to get basically a no, and that can be a little bit of a barrier for a developer to go through that. I also just want to thank the people who are involved in asking me to participate and not letting me know, that I would be on the panel. I appreciate that.
Can
I really do.
Can I
There's
just
few of
give a
you.
shout out to the gentleman who's also known as your father-in-law? Rob, where are you, buddy? Thanks a lot. You set him up nice. That's what father-in-laws do, so.
Well, he did the same thing to me, and I'm not a relation, so.
You might want to check the lineage, because you may be related to him.
Me as well, but I won't hold it against you.
So I could tell you all in the audience that on Friday, this meeting was almost canceled. But Rob, at the last minute, pulled 3 guys up and put them on the spot, and thank you for being here. And Rob did a great job getting those guys. So I want to turn over to Nathan, because how do you get... I'm done. So Nathan, I want to ask you a question, because you do development a little differently. You guys buy a lot more, but you also do some building, correct?
Some, yes.
Okay. So, and you're mostly a rental units in larger areas, like places where there's schools, like West Virginia, Ohio. Am I correct in that too?
Generally larger MSAs, yeah.
Okay. So in Fayette County, which I know you're familiar with Fayette County because your office is in downtown Uniontown.
Sure.
And you see that there's a lot of empty buildings, second floor buildings. Would that be something that would be attractive to Mountain Creek? And not just in downtown Uniontown, but in other areas of Fayette County, because we have a lot of small towns, we have a lot of small municipalities, and they all have those little downtown areas. Would you guys look at, or ever look at, or think about, or bring a team together that would look at second floor apartments?
I'd say from a scalability perspective, the answer is, probably not. But I recognize the question in that when you look at the quality of the building stock in and around town, you can see it, right? There's a number of buildings with second and third floors that are not being used. And unlike a lot of urban areas, you probably don't really have too much of a parking issue, or you could solve it. That's a big one, is that downtown Union could actually solve the parking issue that comes with kind of urban redevelopment that most other towns can't. So from a scalability perspective, I don't think we could get the size to make it attractive, but that is usually more of a local, smaller operator contractor's business. And it does seem like there is a spot for that there.
Okay, that makes
And
sense.
I'll just add real fast, I was in Hopkinsville, Kentucky 3 weeks ago, and so kind of echoing Nate's point, they took some second-story structures and turned them either into rentals or condominiums. And while we didn't study those specifically, I was told by folks, including I think economic development, as soon as those things are ready, they're rented or sold. So there is a high demand for that, but it's just, in most communities, you don't have a lot of that space available, but it's certainly a product that would serve a community's need, especially when you're in a community you don't have very much available. So it's one more drop that could help some way.
And I would say, unlike a lot of smaller towns, the kind of restaurant scene in Uniontown is better than most, right? Most, that restaurant and energy that Uniontown has doesn't exist. If you take Washington County, for example, take downtown Washington, that restaurant scene doesn't really exist. There's maybe one or two, and a lot of people have come and gone and it hasn't worked. Uniontown does have a stable group of restaurants there that brings that energy where you can kind of foresee it happening.
We know how to eat in Fayette County,
Yeah.
as you saw in the meals these guys got today. So this one is for Jordan and for Mike, so we'll go to Jordan first. What are some common misconceptions that communities might have about what attracts or deters residential development?
Yeah, good question, first off. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that, people think that because there's opportunities, because there's availability of land, that, a housing development can be successful. And I hear it all the time. That's not necessarily true. The market speaks to what the residents want. I'm glad you actually brought up something about the restaurant, because something that I look at when I'm vetting out and looking at, potential new land deals is proximity to retail, proximity to restaurants, and, the feedback from the citizens in the county is quite important, because you understand what the needs are, right? And from there, you have something to work with.
So, Mike, I'm going to ask you that same question.
So, just kind of piggyback on that, I would say that when people are looking for homes, they look at school districts, they look at property taxes, they look at amenities, and, and they look at crime rate. So you can't ignore the social aspect of it. It's not just all economics. I used to do some economic development work in the city of Chester. Great location, 10 miles south of the city of Philadelphia. Bad crime, bad schools. They just could not get their act together from a political perspective, and they're in bankruptcy. So if you just dropped a spot and said this would be, you should be able to develop there. The math doesn't work, and the social aspect of things, developers aren't going to go there.
Yeah, I would say the risk on the development side is such that you can never solve one or two things, right? You got your list of 10 things. You got your topography, your cost of your land, your environmental concerns, your soils risk, the demand for the product, right? You go through your list. They don't all have to check the boxes, 10 out of 10. You might even be able to get away with a 1 out of 10 there, but they kind of all have to be 5s or 6s. I used to work for a company where we would helicopter into a new city, and you're looking for a site that has these characteristics, and you'd start off with 30 sites. And over a 2-year period, you would narrow them down to 5. And then you try to tie up 5 and try to work them through the entitlement and zoning process. And each one of those sites out of the box checked all of them. And as you work your way through to find the best possible piece of dirt to take this risk, you end up with some answers that are good enough. Some answers are good enough when it comes to development, but there's a lot of them that have to come together.
So this question is really for all of you. We talked about a TIF, which is a tax incremental financing, which assists in, and for those in the audience who don't know, it assists in the earthwork and the infrastructure portion by taking the taxes that are the future taxes are then paid to the loan to pay that back through a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. But what role do local incentive programs such as tax abatement, TIFs, land access play in decision-making for these processes? And anybody on the panel can jump in. I think you all have a portion of that in your playbook, so.
I would say that they definitely help with, leveling the playing field between sites, and anything you can do to put more profit in for the builder in Fayette County helps.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say, especially for an area like this, risk mitigation is going to be extremely paramount. In any way we can drive down that risk for a developer like himself, we hear about entitlements and working with state, DEP, and then breaking it down to a township level and working through approvals. That all has a monetary value that's attached to it, and it's not cheap. Most of the deals that we source in our markets that we're in right now, just from an entitlement standpoint, can cost anywhere from $350,000 to $600,000. And you could get to the 99-yard line, and there could be an environmental issue that's a non-starter. The deal's done. Now all that money is gone. I mean, it's used up, and nothing's coming about it. So any way we can mitigate that risk, especially from a builder standpoint, when I'm trying to partner with developers, that's extremely important.
And I would say, not to keep this conversation going here, but, from a smaller scale developer's perspective, anything that you guys can do to minimize that upfront investment to the portion where we can get a yes on the permitting side really, really helps to start that fire. If there is, some ideas are, if FAPEN can help in the engineering phase with, maybe there's a loan there, maybe there's some financing where, something can be given to offset that initial upfront cost of the engineering would definitely help. And you guys spoke to amenities and communities and things like that. Any money that you can free up in the beginning allows that developer to then go ahead and put that into amenities and things like that prior to selling, and really just helps a lot.
I think if you look at the market at large, like if you go around to any MSA and then you look at the deals that do get done, 8 out of 10 times there's a TIF involved, right? I mean, that's how they get across that goal line, that little extra incentive. So, I mean, I think the statistics would tell you a large-scale development that gets done usually has a TIF nowadays, particularly in an urban area. I think if you go to the rural area, it's much harder to execute because I think you have the local political climate is a little more multi-layered, and so it's harder to get that TIF done in the rural areas. But the statistics tell you that TIFs get deals done.
So just to give you a little insight, a lot of the local municipalities now are understanding that, and they're seeing that it's easier not to raise taxes by building your tax base. So they're looking at the TIFs a little bit nicer now. And we also think because it's housing and not commercial, TIFs are easier to sell. Because it's not benefiting a for-profit business. It's benefiting their community.
Makes sense.
So does that change your thought a little bit there?
Only that if it increases the chances that you can actually get a
Right.
TIF in place.
That's what we want to do, so. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. I think this one is going to be for Jordan and Anthony because you guys are regional and national builders. So the question is, how does workforce availability and local contractors' capacity affect the willingness to take on a project in a new area?
Yeah, I would be the first to say that it's imperative to have, from a staffing standpoint with D.R. Horton, somebody who not only is going to be willing to be in this area from a production standpoint to actually build the homes, but we got to source sales agents, warranty people, and aside from in-house contractors, we rely on them, right? We subcontract every phase of construction of our homes. And if there's a couple contractors that, are not available that could hold up production and turnkey for our homes, it's going to be quite an issue.
I mean, I'm going to go the opposite way of that. I actually think due to the location of Fayette, it's not that hard to pull from Morgantown and from Pittsburgh for a contractor base, because we've done work here, and most of the contractors that we built for in Fayette County have been from Pittsburgh or from Morgantown. So there is a base that will come here. It's just the opportunity. I think that's the bigger problem is with low rent growth in the area. I mean, from the little I know about Fayette County from a multifamily standpoint, when you have low rent growth because you have a lack of Class A product, you're going to have an issue with the current product in place. If you have more Class A, it automatically gives you workforce housing. It automatically gives you Class B and C product that's already probably here. But without that Class A product, you won't have rent growth. And that's a key contributor to a developer coming in. And I don't even think it would be an issue with building, because if I can tell you from any of our side here, if there was an opportunity to build and the rent growth is there, you'll find the subs. You'll find the contractors that come here.
That's definitely reassuring to hear.
Let's go, and I'll finish up.
No, yeah, the fact that there are people willing to travel and you've had nothing but success there, that makes me feel really good if and when one day we would introduce a development to this area.
Our two biggest developments that we've done here from a construction standpoint are Care Hub. We did work in Matthews Drive and the Beasleytown Shops. Most of those contractors, I would say probably 99% of them are from Pittsburgh. Maybe one or two local if we can find them. Usually that's, being in the community and talking to people, and they're like, we have a guy that can come and do the work for you. They just don't know about the project. So.
Well, and that's why I asked that, because I think with especially housing, you don't want guys to travel an hour and a half from Pittsburgh to come build homes, because you're taking the time, you're burning 3 hours a day in labor. Whereas someone like Nick, who's in town already, would be willing, and and I shouldn't speak for him, but I think he would be willing to work with D.R. Horton to build those houses, because that would actually increase his men and increase his ability to do what he wants to do on the back end of building his developments too.
Yeah, we've had challenges with labor in Fayette County. I have had to pull labor from the Pittsburgh region. Now, I will say, you're on the commercial side, correct?
Yeah, we're commercial bodies.
Yeah.
So
Right. Single family.
those commercial jobs they allow for such higher rates on all of the subs. And generally speaking, those Pittsburgh subs don't want to come down and work for a rate that we can create an affordable house in Fayette County. It's a big challenge. There are so few subcontractors here. I see some builders here in the audience. We all use the same guys. And honestly, it makes competition a little difficult, because those guys know they're the only game in town and they're not giving the best prices. I don't know how we solve that issue either, but labor can be sourced from outside of Fayette County, but it's tough to create an affordable product with that type of labor. Now, on a large-scale multi-family development and things like that, that evens out a lot.
I think it's opportunity. I mean, that's what it comes down to. The more opportunity that is here to build, the more people that will be engaged to come here. Without opportunity, you're not going to have, like you said, you're not going to have the competition.
Mark, let me add something. So it's not the same as Fayette County, but Cherokee County, North Carolina, it's the very farthest west you can go in the state. It's up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It is incredibly isolated. And so they had a challenge of the workforce, skilled labor, construction-related workforce. And so what they did was, and I don't know the specifics of the program, but I know they started to expand their program at the local community college, working with the economic development office there, to try to come up with a better program, to try to start training some of the people that are local to be in that, the skilled construction-related industry, to try to solve some of that because to get out there from, say, Asheville, North Carolina, which is their biggest city in that region, you're talking a couple-hour drive. And so they had a serious construction shortage, and so that was one of the ways they solved it. So I don't know if that's something for Fayette County to think about with the college here and, your economic development group, but.
So something that you probably don't know, Patrick, but this campus has announced that it's closing in 2 years.
I just heard that right before I
Yeah,
spoke.
So,
Yeah.
so there is a group of us working on finding out what they're going to do with the campus first.
Yep.
And then if we find out that we have the ability to do something with the campus, then the next step is, what do we do
Yeah.
with the campus? And that was one of the thoughts, is to bring the trades in here.
Yeah.
So I thank you for that. So I think this is for everyone again. If you could change one thing about how small communities approach housing development, what would it be? Stumped them all. DEP, right? Get rid of them now.
One
thing-
thought
Sorry,
would
go
be.
ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Good.
One thought would be, to control what you can. So, as I understand, you do have some control over a decent amount of land. And from what I gather, the topography of that land is not too difficult. Topography in West Virginia that we've talked about, it's kind of impossible. There's whole swaths of land that you just can't build on.
But they
And-
try.
Yeah, they do, yeah. And so if you focus on what you can control, and you want to foster the development, you can take the risk off the table of the environmental, right? You can do some of that engineering up front relative to wetlands and relative to endangered species. You can do some early engineering relative to site usage and what can be used in a pretty cost-effective manner. And so you can start de-risking it for the developer that's going to take that on and kind of hand it to them on a plate. So if you control the land, you can basically solve the environmental, at least provide the answers to the test, and at least nudge it forward relative to some of the DEP hurdles. That's controlling what you can. I would start there.
Nick, you had.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd say is, though we do have a lot of space in the county seems a little adverse to density. And just from a cost perspective, the more dense we can get, the lower we can, bring all of those costs. And that would help, a little more multifamily, very dense, single family. It's minimizing costs as much as we can.
Anybody else?
Yeah, the density seems like low-hanging fruit. If that's been a hurdle locally to getting something done, I would say that you should take that one off the table.
Okay. Does anyone have questions in the audience? Please hold your card up. Muriel or someone will grab it off of you, and we'll get to those. While we're waiting for those, let me look at our two on the end, Patrick and Mike. What advice would you give to local leaders who want to encourage more market rate development in ways that benefit the entire community?
I'll start. You're doing it right now. This is part of it. I think just educating the public, educating the development community. I think for some communities, unless you're like in Allegheny County or Washington County where people are wanting to come in and build, Fayette County is going to fall off the radar. And so I think you're starting the process. You had a housing study done. You have this meeting now. You had the virtual developer meeting a year ago. I know there's been discussions of having a developer day where you can take developers to potential sites. There's all kind of cool stuff that can be done, marketing. And so communities really need to be proactive. You can't just sit there and go, okay, well, we studied our community. We have a need. Let's wait for it to come, because it just doesn't work that way. So having these gentlemen be part of this, having you be part of this is really continuing that process of getting word out of why should somebody want to be here in the county and develop in this community. And let me add too, I think, a lot of developers make the mistake, and these gentlemen probably are not those ones, but a lot of developers make the mistake that they only build in those communities that they see rapid growth. And that makes sense, I understand, that's the easy markets to pick. But hopefully the study did its job, and I did my job to convey, look, there is opportunities. Even though this county isn't growing, you have segments in your market that are, especially those higher income households. But you got to get word out, because developers otherwise, they're not looking at that often, or not looking at that granular level of detail. And so they would go, well, I looked at some demographic numbers, the Fayette County's not growing, I'm not going to build there. That's a huge mistake. Help them overcome that mistake, and I think, again, educating them, marketing the opportunities, you can get some interest here in the county.
Yeah, and maybe to piggyback on that too, being very clear in your zoning ordinance and in your plan about what kind of development you want, from a de-risking perspective for the developers, if you get to do certain things by right, that should reduce your cost, it should reduce your risk, and if the communities are saying this is what we want, that's a lot easier for then developers to get through the process, because that time is money.
Explain to me by right.
By right means, and these guys can probably better explain it than me, but it's your zoning ordinance or your land use and subdivision ordinance would say, these are the types of uses, the types of building that we will allow in our community in these particular zoning districts, R1, R2, R3, what the setbacks are, and then they could then pencil in the job that says, all right, based on what we can get by right, we can get X number of units for that, and then that they're allowed to do that. That's also where the town then comes out and says, well, we don't want that. Well, they're allowed to do that by law, which is, again, one of the misconceptions that sometimes residents have. Certain things, the MPC, Municipality Planning Code, developers are allowed to do it if the township says they're allowed to do it.
Okay. So that's our planning and zoning office right there, so.
Yeah.
Who said she wasn't going to talk and she didn't want anybody to ask her who she was? Just so I can put that out there. Did you guys have something on that? Because I heard you sigh at one point.
No, I'm just glad you brought it up, because a lot of what I do and what I look at does break down to zoning, and depending on the township, it could be a deal breaker. If we go in, by right, subdivide, a plan that we think would work, and something comes up that makes that plan not work, we need the help of the township and flexibility, to be able to get it across the finish line. Or if it's not a permitted by right use, maybe it's a conditional that makes that work, and we get higher density. The receptivity from the township is going to be paramount for that.
Okay. I have a few questions, and this one I have to read because I told you I needed 2 votes. One of the commissioners gave a question. He actually gave 2 questions. What part do parks and trails play in home demand? I'm looking right at you.
Yeah, I know you are. I actually love this question. There's a deal that I've been working on for the past 8 months, and one of the ways that we're going to be able to diversify and attract more home buyers is by putting a walking trail that's going to connect to an adjacent park that abuts it. And people are extremely receptive to that. Any way you can strategically have other selling points for that development, all day, every day. It's a good question.
So we know of some land that's right next to a potential trail. We could show you that before you leave today if you'd like.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm just trying to get these guys, I'm going to get a contract signed before we leave here, Tim. Tim, I promise you that, okay? What are other rural or semi-rural areas doing to stimulate home building? I think the question really is, what are municipalities doing to recruit you guys to come? Am I correct? Is that easier?
So we're sitting here trying to figure out how to attract opportunity in county. What are some of the similar sized counties?
Yeah, no, I think job opportunities are extremely important. we hear, I'll go back to it because it could be as simple as people in Fayette County love the restaurants here, right? You know, certain townships are pouring money into projects that are ultimately bringing people in. And I know it costs money to do that, but, you know, at the end of the day, I think anyone in here could say that it costs money to make money. So ways in which you can strategically, you know, bring things to the county that are going to intrigue others, I think that's very important.
I'm thinking this is going to go to Patrick and Michael again. What is or has been the impact of working from home been on the housing market? Interesting question.
Yeah.
The data that I've seen, we all see articles, but the data that I've seen and can obtain, it's up through 2021. And so I don't know the full effect, because once COVID hit, right, everybody could work from home. I had a lot of my employees that now work from home or now moved to other states. So I'm sure it's had some role of keeping people in certain markets. I will say this, and this really doesn't apply to Fayette County, but just broadly speaking, we've seen a lot of people from like the northeastern United States, New England, places like that, now go down to the southeast U.S. to live near the coast. I mean, maybe they always vacation down in South Carolina, North Carolina, or whatever. But now they could live down there because their employers let them. And what happened, and California's been a big one, where Californians are leaving the state to move to other places that they find more desirable. But California and New England, what do they have in common? They have really high price homes. So when they sell them, they're coming with a lot of cash to these other markets, and they're buying cash, they're overbidding. Maybe through the Realtors Association, maybe you're seeing some of that. But they're really inflating the prices of some of these markets. They're squeezing markets that are already struggling with available housing, because you've got this influx now. I can live in the southeast and still work for my company in New York, or I can live in Arizona, but my company's still in California. I can keep my job. And so you're seeing this mobility. I just don't know how it's going to be sustained. I read some stuff that had slowed down after 2021, a little bit in 2022. But that's, again, I don't know if that's a Fayette County issue as much as I've seen some of these more highly desirable southeastern, southwestern markets in the U.S.
But would it be a Fayette County issue because now you can come and live in the most beautiful county in the state, where we have Ohio Powell, Falling Water, Nemacolin Woodlands, just to name a few?
Yeah, you could leverage some of your recreational opportunities. Again, though, you got to get that out to the public, the consumers that are making a decision on where they're going to live. Certainly, I think your opportunities here would attract people. Market.
Yeah, and I think we saw that immediately after COVID too. We had a lot of, particularly in the Poconos, a lot of people from New York, New Jersey selling their house, buying it for cash, driving up prices. I think that's moderated a little bit. I think one of the big questions, taking housing out of it, is the commercial sector, trying to figure out what's going to happen in that space. And maybe there's an opportunity for adaptive reuse, but occupancy rates have started to go down because not as many people are going to the office. What we hear is that, a Class A space, trophy space, is really what the market is today on the commercial side. Class B and C is going to struggle. So you're going to probably have, when you look at what solutions are there going to be adaptive reuse tax credits or incentives for developers to find a way to turn those maybe into mixed use assets or into residential assets?
So we have a question, and I like this question a lot because it really makes sense to me. Economic development agencies such as Fayette, they bring in development by having pad-ready sites. Would that be something that could benefit or stimulate the growth here to where we would create a pad-ready site? And I'm looking back at you because this is what you want.
In all caps, yes.
Yes.
I mean, that is,
Yes.
that's a dream come true,
So,
to be honest, because, I mean, at that point, I mean, so pad ready to me means, at the front of the lots, the benches are established, you've got utilities run. I mean, at that point, there's really no development risk. It's approved from the township. We're ready to go vertical all day.
so would funding from the state help us create that? Would that be a possibility for us to, for Fayette Penn? Could they go out and get a grant from the state, or can the state make some type of, would it help you guys if that was available at that point?
100% would help.
Okay. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the guy that wrote the question. Okay? I'm looking right at the guy that wrote the question. Thurst is yelling at me, so.
Yeah, I mean, I could go, there's a specific example, I can't get too into detail because it's not contractually signed up yet, but in Wheeling, West Virginia, we were brought something in the recent past, and there was an extensive grant that was approved for the development. Came across my desk, and the first thing I thought in my mind was, where's the risk, right? Developer gets his funds to develop the site, to get us what we need to build our homes. We go in, we build our homes, and and if we could strategically structure it where potentially maybe there's a pre-existing sales contract that's already in place, now there's even less risk.
It'll also help with modern financing too, because you don't have a track record of modern financing in this market for multifamily, single-family homes. So by doing the infrastructure, like you said, you'll allow banks to actually, it de-risks the bank in order for them to actually put the debt into the project. Less money the developer has to put up front for that type of work. It'll allow a bank to be more aggressive.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think a lot of the developers, the biggest struggle is the interest carry that they, assume when loaning out these projects. And the ones that are longer term that aren't successful, that interest carry can really add up quick.
Send us that grant information that you got in Wheeling, because we'll forward it on to the state to see if they can
Yeah.
mimic it. Not that I'm putting any pressure. I didn't either, but I could have swore I read financing in here. I think that was this word. I'm just kidding. So, how does building large-scale housing developments help or hurt our legacy communities?
I think the community is going to die if we don't. So, to keep the community alive, we have to.
More density, more jobs, more opportunity.
I'm reading.
Yeah.
These were my questions, the typed ones. I read those too, I was given those. The other half of that question is, how do we make sure we grow incrementally versus building overbuilds and having self-implosion or infrastructure boom and bust?
So before I answer that, I actually do want to go back to the other question real quick.
Okay.
So I currently reside close to Cranberry. It's in Mars. It's part of Adams Township. And the amount of residential and commercial development that's taking place is truly insurmountable. And a lot of people, including my wife, I have to correct her all the time, think that because there's more activity, the value of current or local communities that have been grandfathered or already here goes down. In my opinion, it does the opposite, right? So if land opportunities are becoming more scarce in that area, what is that going to do? It's going to drive up the pricing, because then you have to go farther away from proximity to Cranberry, from proximity to 79 and I-76. So the more we see development, especially residential, it's a green light for me.
Okay. You want to touch back on the second question?
If you could reread it,
Yeah,
if you don't mind, thank you.
How do we make sure we grow incrementally versus building overbuilds and go bust, basically?
I think the first few projects that are going to take place in Fayette County need to prove, what we all want to see, right? At the end of the day, if they're failures, it's going to disincentivize people to come back. So, incremental growth here is going to be extremely imperative, and we need to see it tangibly with the first few.
So I like the fact that you actually answered that with what we all want to see, not what you all want to see. So we're getting you, right? We're winning.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's not a one-way street.
All right,
What we do is we want to serve the market, and we want it to be beneficial to all parties involved, developers, builders, ourselves, residents, right? We're trying to provide new housing for people that they can build memories in with their families.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Again, I do think it's incremental growth, and we kind of have a chicken and an egg problem. You know, what I've seen from customers, say, coming from Morgantown, I hear it a lot. They'll say, I don't want to spend that much money on a house in Fayette County because they're concerned that they won't be able to resell it. So the more we can start to show sales and growth, the more that's going to allow people to say, okay, yeah, I can build in Fayette County, and it'll just kind of start to grow.
So I think a tool you need is the housing assessment. Because when you show them that 99.6% of the houses are rented,
Yeah.
and you show them that we don't have a lot of houses for sale, that's going to show them that that market is there.
Yeah.
So we'll get
Definitely.
you, we'll get you that study. I know a guy.
Okay.
This one, it starts in the middle and ends at the top, so if I mess this up, I apologize to whoever gave this question. Not only for examples does Uniontown have a good restaurant scene, but we also have history, architecture, a strong theater, plus the Sheepskin Trail is coming. Millennials want walkability, and people want to live in downtown. Now I got to go to Nathan because it's for Nathan. I'm sorry. Many other communities across the country are seeing success with ending parking mandates. If we end parking mandates city by city or county-wide, would there be an interest from developers to create more housing in the downtowns? So I think,
Yeah, I think the question is if you eliminated the parking requirements.
yes.
Would,
Yes.
would it spur
And-
downtown
And one thing
development?
I'll correct is the county doesn't do any parking. They're not parking enforcement. Those
Right.
are all municipalities. So go ahead.
You know, the simple short answer would be yes. You know, if you eliminated the parking requirements, which kind of nationwide are a bit archaic, right? People have less cars. It's not as important. And so the 2-to-1 or the 2.5 parking spaces per unit, it is a bit outdated. And I think there's a trend kind of nationwide to be more flexible there. But the short answer is, yeah, if you eliminated parking requirements, which is kind of like a hard zoning one, right? The parking requirement is X, there's not a lot of flexibility there. If you eliminated that, it naturally, of course, it would open it up because parking doesn't generate any revenue. It's just valuable land taken up with asphalt. And so it's really a detrimental cost to urban development.
Who wants to give the definition of affordable housing in Fayette County? Patrick, I think I'm looking at you because you're the guy that did the study and you
Yeah.
have the numbers.
Yeah, I don't remember the dollar amount, and everybody uses affordable differently, but like affordable, attainable workforce housing is usually people that make up to about 80% of area median income. I don't remember what that number is for your, actually, I would have it in here. I'll look. You got another question?
So I also think the other part of that is, we looked at this study and we looked at this process as different levels. We really looked at this more of workforce affordable housing, not affordable housing on the low-income side. So I think that's one of the things we have to clarify, that we have organizations in Fayette County that already build low-income housing. We have organizations that support the low to mod families already. We're looking at that family who needs the nurse who works, the husband who works, and they can't afford a house because we don't have the houses. So that's why we looked towards these developments, and it's more workforce housing than affordable housing. And I'm looking at our threshold guy right here who does affordable housing. He does self-help homes. So those are the things we already have in place. Community Action has been building houses. They just completed 13 single-family homes and 12-unit apartment buildings. in a neighborhood, a low-income neighborhood, that, by the way, I live in, not because I work for the county, though. I choose to live there. So, do you have those numbers?
Yeah, so again, affordable by definition is often tied to housing programs that go up to about 80% of median income. So for your area, that'd be households that make up to $80,000 a year. Mark, speaking to what I think you're getting to, and it's actually your biggest gap for the for sale housing, that's for households that make about $80,000 to $123,000 a year. So that's a big one on the for sale side. And even on the rentals for that same income group, it's still a pretty big gap. So yeah, there's an affordable need tied to programs, but you have a big gap for that next segment up that wouldn't qualify for any kind of governmental assistance for both rentals and for sale.
Okay, so this next question is, why does it seem that we are more focused on expanding infrastructure over revitalization and infill on existing infrastructure, especially in the context that our taxes just went up and our population continues to age and shrink? It was mentioned the risk falls on the developer, but with the cost of the infrastructure, I'm concerned we are ignoring the risk that falls on the taxpayers. So I'm not sure where the question is, but the infrastructure cost is on the developer. That's one of the things that we looked at. And if we talk about a TIF, it's still on the developer. It's on the developer and the actual property owner, because a TIF takes the taxes that are current and leaves them at that for that piece of property. It doesn't change the value of the taxes, and it only takes a percentage to pay that TIF back. Once the TIF is paid back, then the municipalities, all three, the school district, the county, and the municipality, they then receive that influx of tax dollars. So it's actually a planning for them, because they can look down the road and say, in 10 years, we'll have an increase in taxes. And then, on top of that, if you go in and renovate that house or add a garage to it, that tax automatically gets charged to you. It doesn't hold at that number. It actually, any increases after the TIF is created, those still come in. So did I answer that question? I think it's yours, right, Kel?
Yeah,
I recognize the right.
It's a little over my head. I'm just a resident. I'm not a developer, so I live in
Okay.
town.
Yeah.
Is the TIF the direction that we're going?
No, the TIF is just one more tool in our toolbox, that if these guys say, hey, we can build houses and we can do new homes but we need infrastructure, we can create a TIF to help them with that.
Kelly, I've been studying TIFs for 3 months, and I don't understand that.
And I've been studying it for 4 years, and,
Financing tool for a developer.
right.
I guess a concern of mine is, because like I said, the tone that, because I've been following this conversation since 2024, so the tone for me is new neighborhoods, new single-family homes. I think some concerns about the country and trends of suburban development are concerning. If we're going to do new neighborhoods, because I'm an advocate for revitalizing our legacy communities, our existing neighborhoods. Since our population is going down, if we're moving there, I think that would be a different story. But if we're going to build a bunch of new neighborhoods, or we're just thinking all single-family homes, or are we thinking incremental development? Some of these neighborhoods have mixed-use buildings, apartments, condos, townhomes, even commercial spots within those new developments. I think the distinction between a plot of a bunch of new single-family homes.
But we're seeing that. We are.
But eventually, does the infrastructure cost eventually fall on that?
No, because the infrastructure would be the responsibility of the developer. Just like if you're putting a new water line, well, the maintenance, then yes, it would fall on, but it would fall on that community no matter what. Even the houses that the city of Uniontown has tore down, there's still infrastructure there.
I think our argument is it wouldn't fall on it.
And I would say, don't forget, the TIF does burn off. It
Yes.
doesn't exist forever.
It only lasts for 5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 years. So it's, like I said, it's a tool to get them over the hump.
The tools to get over how to develop,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And then eventually there is going to be long-standing infrastructure.
Yes.
Yes, and
But then the taxes are there.
then it burns off, and the maintenance of it then would fall on the developer or whomever's carrying that tax burden at that time.
The maintenance of the infrastructure involved in
Some does, because if the developer chooses to maintain the ownership of the roads and the sewer lines, it would be on them. If not, then it would go to the townships or the municipality who would accept it. But they would have to accept it. They wouldn't just be forced to. LC, am I correct? It doesn't get just forced on you that when I build a new development in your municipality, you have to take the roads.
Well, that's why I'm here to be, that, from time to time, I mean, it definitely would fall on the ratepayer at the end of collecting the bid.
Right.
A lot of our fiscal audits, sewage authority, most of the revenue is allocated for depreciation automatically. So the more the bigger we're going to make our facility, the higher our depreciation cost is, which would then tend to entail maybe having an increase in rates because we need a bigger facility. But that's all accounting data that's well over my head. But I know when we look at our audits, now we're fiscally sound 40, but then when we add depreciation in, it's okay. So it's kind of a loaded question at first. I mean, I do agree with the table and alerters and stuff to get the developers up to hump. But I do think in the long run, tax revenue that's received offsets the cost of the maintenance.
Right.
In the long run, that we work together with the grants and stuff.
Yes.
Things like that. But yeah, I definitely think she's saying, if we increase all these buildings and add, we need to concentrate on adding updates to the facility.
Yeah, and I'd also just like for you to consider that if we're putting in new infrastructure and moving people out of areas and to new areas, we can then look at possibly abandoning some of that older infrastructure that is much more costly to maintain. I'm sure you can attest to that.
There's a lot of working parts, and it's
Right.
just more than talking about all sort of, a lot of times there's a partnership that could be worked with the developer.
All right, I got three more questions, because I see one at the top. One more question. All right, so the questions that we didn't answer, what we'll do is we'll get them, and we will answer them, and you'll get an email, because we have everybody's email. How about that? So this question is to the room. Who in the room, by show of hands, is interested in additional meetings to partner, to work with, to collaborate with Fayette and our organizations to get housing in Fayette County? Okay, that guy got two hands up. The guy that wrote the question didn't have his hand up at all. So what we'll do also is we'll send another email out asking you for that so that we can sit down and talk to everyone about that. I think we're to the point where I get to introduce the one. Well, first of all, let me thank our speakers. Give these guys a round of applause.
So I get the easy part.
Wait, I didn't get to introduce you.
No, that's okay.
I want to introduce Mr. Andrew French, the Redevelopment Authority Director of the County of Fayette, also the Riley Stoy Award winner. And I need you to go to a microphone because we're live on TV, so just swing that one over. There you go. And you guys can shut yours off.
So I think great discussion. I think we all got a lot out of this. Did everybody enjoy it? Good? Beneficial? Worthwhile? I think we learned a lot of things today, but I think I kept hearing the words like challenges, and I think in Fayette County we know that we've got kind of tremendous challenges regarding housing, especially market rate housing, but I also think we realize that those challenges aren't insurmountable. And I also liked that Pat kept going back to, well, you've got the challenges, but you've also got tremendous opportunities. And I think that's what we're trying to emphasize with our group is moving forward. How do we kind of capitalize on those challenges to create those opportunities? I also think an important message that Mike brought up and Pat as well, but we're not alone. This is a statewide crisis or statewide challenge regarding housing. In fact, as Pat said, it's a national crisis. So that's something that I think we have to realize, again, that we're not on an island by ourselves. To our private developers, I thank you. I ask you to please stay engaged. Obviously, I hope you learned today that in Fayette County, we're here to try to make things happen. We've put together this coalition that's laying the groundwork to try to bring those tools and those resources to try to improve our existing communities, but also expand the housing stock that we have throughout the county. I think it's also notable that we've had tremendous representative from our state delegation, legislative delegation, from our federal delegation, and from the county with the county commissioners. So I thank them for coming. I know you're not supposed to say we're from the government and we're here to help. But in this case, we really mean it. We really want to lay the groundwork with this coalition to move things forward and continue to make Fayette County such a great place to live and call home. So with that, I thank you for all coming. On behalf of Muriel and Mark and Tim, again, we hope you found this beneficial, and we hope you participate in future networking events that we'll have down the road. Right? All right, thank you all.
Thanks for doing this. I love you guys responded well to being put on the spot. Hey, that was great. Really, I love the three.